Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and in today's video we're going to look at making a horn for this piece of track here that I'm using as an anvil. I've had this bolted down to my welding table, but that meant to use it in conjunction with my forge. I had to set the forge right at the doors to the tin barn, and of course burning that coal, a lot of smoke in. So I think this will serve me better to put it on the stump, put it outside a little bit away from the barn. I can use the forge at the same time. Now you may be wondering why I don't just take the grinder and grind out a horn over here. But this is only 11 inches long. This was the only piece of rail I had. And I want to cut out over here. I've determined I've got a need for a heel. So I'm going to cut out probably about 4 inches in here to make a heel. And I wanted my horn to be about 4 inches as well. But if I did that, I was only going to leave about 3 inches of striking space on the anvil. So what I want to do is, on the lathe, machine a weldable horn, one that I can put over here. Now, I did a little prototype of a piece, and this was turned out only about 2 3/4 inches long, and I want about a 4-inch horn out here. And notice how that's machined. It is in fact a cone, but I wanted the flat edge. I didn't want the cone just being a point out from here. I wanted that to run pretty much parallel, or pretty much on the same plane across here. So I'm going to get set up on the lathe. What we're going to do is take this piece of 2-inch stock here, which this is considerably bigger. This is about 1 3/4 inches, but it's 2-inch stock, and I've already put a center in it. I don't want to. I want to leave it as long as I can to machine it. Then I'll cut it off. So let's get set up on the lathe and look at cutting this long angle on here. All right, I got our workpiece in the lathe now. And as I said before, I've got a center drilled in there and got the tailstock in place. Got the compound set at 20 degrees in the opposite side of 90. Now, if you've not seen my previous video where I showed a quick way to set the compound angle up, check that out. I'll try to remember to put a link up here, put a card up here to that video. But I've got this set up. And as you saw over there on the workbench, this was set up so that it would be flush, or this was turned so it would be flush or in line with the top of the anvil. There's nothing special about doing that. We're going to mill the cone in here just like we normally would. That's the way this was done. The magic, if you will, is cutting it at the same angle. So this is a 90-degree angle. When we saw it off, this will be a 90-degree to one of the sides. So I'm set up now. We're going to go ahead and start on this angle. This is a piece of hot roll, so there's a lot of scale on there that makes it look like it's turning off center, but it is pretty much centered on there. All right, I've got my compound all the way in now. Got the carriage lined up and got it locked down. Carriage is going to remain in one place until we run out of traffic, or run out of travel that my compound will go. My compound will only go about 2.5 inches of travel. We want this horn to be about 4 1/4 inches. At a 20-degree angle, we're going to leave a 1/2 inch down here on this end, 2 inch down here. So that gives us about approximately 4 1/4 will be the length. I think it's 4.253, something to that effect. So let's start a little turning here. I'll just use the cross slide to advance it in. I'm only going in about 20 thousandths on the cross slide at the time. Let's try 40. All right, I've got a lot of cutting to do here. Probably what I'm going to do is come down here with my drill and just easily feed this in. Reverse my drill. That was probably a bit fast. All right, I'm going to continue this process on. And I think on that fast pass I made there, I actually broke the tip on the insert. So I'm going to change the insert, and then I'll bring it back when we start getting close to the maximum of the travel of the compound on my lathe. All right, what has happened now, I'm run out of space on my, or run out of travel on my compound on this lathe. And we're not quite down to the 1/2 inch on this end that I want to leave. So what that's going to do is leave a shoulder where I stop over here. And I'm getting extremely close over here. So if I have to, I may have to adjust my angle some to stay away from these chuck jaws. But I think I'm going to be able to finish this out. We'll see. All right, let's see how much I do have left to go. That's 7/88, so I've got about another 1/4 inch to come off of there. I'm going to keep going like I'm going. Again, it's going to leave a shoulder here. Then I'll bring you back when we move everything over and finish this out. Okay, I've got one more cut to make to get this down to about a 1/2 inch. I'm not trying to get it exact because being on taper, just about impossible to measure right on that edge, but I'm running close right here as well on space, so this is going to be the last pass. All right, now I'm just going to back the compound out of the way, or back the cross feed out of the way, and I'm going to get just a little bit of overlap here. Then move the carriage in, and what I'm going to do is start working this shoulder I had to leave down and bring this taper on back to approximately 4 1/4 inches. All right, what I should have done was run my compound all the way back to its home position, then move the carriage down. Giving just a little overlap there. All right, I'm going to continue working this down and bring it back when we get ready to polish the finished product. Okay, we're almost blended, and like I say, I had to adjust this angle just a little bit to keep from running into my chuck. So I'm not going to get the full 4 1/4. I'm going to get closer to right at 4 inches. So now I want to, where I give a little bit of overlap here, I want to come back just where I touch. Okay, now I'm going to get all this out of the way. I'm even going to move the tailstock out of the way and get my my belt grinder and see if we can't polish that up. All right, hopefully you've seen the video series where I built this belt grinder from my angle grinder. I'm going to put the lathe in reverse. All right, I think I may need to put a new belt on there, but before I do that, just so I can get a good polish all the way to this end here, I'm going to put the tailstock back in place and knock a little bit of this scale right here off. Just enough to round it up. There's some wicked mill scale on this hot roll. All right, I'm happy with that. I'm going to go grab another belt to put on the grinder and give that a polish, a final polish. All right, I've got the piece out of the lathe now, got it all polished up like we want it. To make this set on the same plane as the striking surface on the lathe, all we've got to do is cut this off at 90 degrees to the angle we put on there, the angle we milled on there. So it's just a matter of coming over to our saw and setting our protractor again, still the same tool, and setting it to the same angle we had on the compound, moving this around and locking it down. So I'm satisfied with that. And this is why I wanted to leave this piece as long as I could instead of cutting it very close to length and bringing the compound around on the other side on the lathe. That would have made cutting a little easier, but I would have had more scrap and wouldn't have had much to hold it with here in the saw. So what I'm wanting to do is line this saw blade up with the transition from when it went to the angle back to the flat surface. Doesn't have to be exact, but want it close. Got it locked in. And I felt something move then. Let me double check. Felt like when I tightened it down that something moved. It did. It moved just a little. Let me get this set back up and get it tightened. I don't think I remember to tighten this back bolt on here. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back now. I've got this set back at the correct angle. Got the piece tied in there. Now we want to saw this off, and it makes no difference about the rotation at this point, obviously, because it's round. Once we cut it off, it will make a difference of how we orient it when we set it on the track anvil to weld in place. carried the horn that we just turned on the lathe, along with the anvil itself, the piece of track, over to a friend of mine that runs a professional machine and welding shop. I've got a little welder, Lincoln Buzzbox, Lincoln 220, but I just didn't feel confident enough welding this together. It's going to take some considerable downforce hammering on here. So I carried it over to him to have welded up. He put me a good bead all the way around here, underneath as well, built that up very, very good up under the bottom on both sides. I'm not going to get rid of all this weld on the top. He told me he did burn it in good, so there's a good deep weld there. But I do want a flat surface here, so I think what I'll do is just set this here on the surface grinder, set it up, and just mill this flat. It doesn't have to be on the same plane as the striking surface of the anvil, but I do want it a flat surface in the event I do say lay something there and hit on it, that it's not this rippled finish. All right, I've got it mounted down on the mag chuck now. Got my drive engaged, and we're going to drop down about 3 thousandths at a time. All right, I think I'm going to take about one more 4 thousandths pass. Taking 4 thousandths per cut now, for a pass. All right, I think that's a good. Like I say, I don't want to take all that weld up there at the top. This will not be a lot of striking right on this, right on the spot where we join. Let me get the camera pointed back down for you. Okay, so what I have is, again, just trying to blend those two surfaces together there pretty good. Before I carried this over to the machine and welding shop to have the horn welded on, I carried it to the bandsaw in here, laid out what I wanted for a heel, and at the bandsaw just basically cut this section out to give me a hangover heel. Then I set it up on the mill, drilled a 3/4 inch hole, and then took a small end mill and squared off the corners as much as I could with the end mill. Went in with the file and again tried to square off those corners to make a 3/4 inch hardy hole. So while this is not equivalent by any means to a nice cast anvil, 100, 150, 200 pound anvil, no way compares to that, but it's what we'll call an ASO, an anvil shaped object, and I think it'll serve my purpose. I've got a couple of projects coming up, might be Christmas gifts involved, but I've got some projects coming up where I'll use this and the forge and see if we can't turn some metal into some Christmas gifts. So stick with me. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one.